In the current era of gaming, companies found that releasing new games back to back is expensive and unsustainable based on their huge budgets. They found it's cheaper to just create one game and build off of that for years. Unlike games in the past where they would release and see some DLC for like a year or two into the game's life, games are supported for way longer because the profit potential is huge. These are live service games. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines live service games as the word you've entered isn't in the dictionary. Click on a spelling suggestion below or try again using the search bar above. Live service games are also referred to as games as a service. Essentially, they make money via continuous updates past their initial launch date, so they continue to make money beyond their initial launch sales. This model should be familiar to any gamer unless you play indie games only, in which case I respect you and you're my hero. I would say, though, for most of us, it directly impacts the games that we play. It seems that today, every multiplayer game will have a games as a service component to it. But what seems to happen time and time again is that if the game doesn't get enough traction, they just quietly stop supporting it. Of course, they aren't obligated to continue to work on a product that doesn't make money, but in a world where some games have been out for over half a decade, it's strange to see some of them with the same monetization model die out in a year or less. The most classic example of this games as a service model is probably like World of Warcraft. It's a game where you pay monthly in order to play, as well as having to pay for expansion packs. To put in perspective how long a game has been supported, it came out 2 weeks after Halo 2 did on the original Xbox. And while World of Warcraft is still insanely popular today, I think that the modern live service model owes itself mostly to Fortnite, because nothing has come close to the popularity and reach that Fortnite still has. Fortnite launched their Battle Royale mode for free as opposed to the premium VRs at the time, like PUBG and H1Z1, and Fortnite brought a streamlined inventory system, unique building mechanics, a fun art style, and stable console gameplay to the genre of Battle Royale. Still, no matter how many people downloaded and played the game, Epic wouldn't make a cent unless they bought something. Sure, they could have just hoped that people were going to buy the Save the World campaign, but they didn't bank on it. Instead, a shop system was implemented into the game alongside of a cosmetic unlock path that we now just collectively refer to as the Battle Pass, starting in Season 2. Shops in games were nothing new, and neither were Battle Passes, but the inclusion of the premium currency inside the Battle Pass, enough to get the next pass and then a little more, made Fortnite feel like one of the best deals in gaming. This game was so big that it created just a snowball effect of popularity. As it became more popular, it made more money, and the money got made into more content, and the content was popped out so quickly that people kept playing, and so it got even more popular, and so it made even more money. Other AAA devs also wanted to achieve that same kind of popularity and success that Fortnite had. But what I think happened, and I think is still happening, is they focused on the wrong place. Generally, all the games mimic the shop and battle pass system, and they do that just great. But where they miss what Fortnite did is the content. That's where Fortnite stood out as a live service game. Just look at all the new items that were being released into the game. Every week or two, something new was being added, keeping the game fresh, giving you another reason to check out the game. Fortnite perfected this avalanche of new content. Every season, they would change the map, vault weapons, unvault other weapons. Everything would keep the game feeling fresh. In my opinion, Fortnite remains the king of live service games. It does everything right. The battle pass is fair, and it's reasonable to complete. Its shop prices have stayed comparable to what they began at, and the content output is still more than healthy, especially compared to other major competing titles. Side note, this is ignoring all of the other not Battle Royale elements in this game, like creative and the workshop modes that people have made. I really do think we take for granted how insane Fortnite is as a game with its crossovers and content and pop cultural impact. It's just fun. It's a good game. Fortnite's popularity was almost a threat to every other shooter game out there. Fortnite wasn't getting a sequel. It was just going to keep getting bigger. So competing games kinda had to catch up fast. It was a real detriment to have to put millions of dollars every couple of years, when instead they could just do one and support that forever. So AAA companies, like Activision, like Call of Duty, had to figure out what they were going to do in response. And it was interesting. So while Call of Duty is traditionally known for its games to include 3 modes, a single player, a multiplayer versus, and a co-op mode, Call of Duty's next release after Fortnite's cultural surge chose to forego the campaign in favor of the Battle Royale mode. And no, it's not Warzone. It's Blackout, part of Black Ops 4 in 2018. This was going to be Call of Duty's second time to do a live service model, the first being Call of Duty Elite during Modern Warfare 3 in 2011, but let's not talk about that. Normally, instead, they had been doing 4 DLC packs as part of a season pass throughout 1 year. Black Ops 4, though, was going to be broken up into seasons. There were a few catches with this, though. First and foremost, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was not a free game. And unlike Warzone and Modern Warfare 2019 and Warzone 2 with Modern Warfare 2 2022, that's a mouthful, the Battle Royale aspect wasn't free either. In fact, when you look at the other major options for Battle Royales, that being PUBG, H1Z1, and Fortnite, Call of Duty was going to be the most expensive Battle Royale at the time. But this was more than just the Battle Royale. Versus multiplayer and the zombies mode added a lot of value to the package, allegedly. While they took a seasonal approach to the modes, maps, and cosmetics, the result was still the same number of maps that they would normally release during a DLC season for a Call of Duty game. And all of that actually had a price tag of $50. It wasn't free to get the DLC maps. The Battle Royale map updates were free, though. Of course, they only had a handful of locations added over a whole year, while Fortnite was adding things every other week. It's needless to say that Call of Duty's second outing, technically, to the live service was okay at best, and really nothing special. Their next shot was with Warzone and Modern Warfare 2019. For the first time ever, Call of Duty was going free to play. Kind of, just the Battle Royale part. But now the maps are free too in the main game. There's lots of positives all around. But what ended up happening is the multiplayer ended up kind of being neglected to some degree, with a lot of remake maps instead of originals. Warzone was ended after like 3 years, and none of the cosmetics actually carried over until Warzone 2. And they continued to roll out premium releases every year on top of that, and they integrated them inside of Warzone 1, making it more and more bloated by the end of the game. Today, Call of Duty continues to make its annual premium release. It's stuck with that seasonal format for all of these years and found a ton of money in operator and skin bundles and blueprint bundles, because other than in Warzone, none of those bundles carry over. And while people have been building Fortnite inventories for 6 years, you basically lose whatever $20 Call of Duty cosmetics you spent every single year. Overall, the live service has served Call of Duty very well. And while I think it's an overall positive because of the DLC maps and weapons being available to all players without actually having to pay anything, I also think that the overall quality of the package has taken a hit year on year. While I believe things like the overabundance of remade multiplayer maps cheapens the map pool, and none of the free zombie maps have ever hit the quality that the previous paid outings have, there are also serious fundamental problems every year with the Call of Duty releases. This year's Modern Warfare 3 seems like it isn't launching with a single original map. And while a ton of people are happy for the 16 Modern Warfare 2 remakes, I think that's just kind of ridiculous and boring. Every year, Call of Duty leaderboards are not ready for launch. Every year, the ranked mode isn't ready until like Season 1 or 2. And every year, the store is always up and running at launch. There's always bundles to buy. The game is different than from what it is in 2019, and until people get tired of that, it's just gonna stay that way. But Call of Duty isn't the only game. Other games are trying the same thing. While $15 DLCs were the norm at some point, Nobody bats an eye at a $20 skin in a new game. And while every publisher is pushing to get their developers to have a shop, sometimes they forget to develop a good game in the process. While having a season pass would ensure that the game gets supported to fulfill an obligation of said pass, the seasonal model means that a game can die at any time. Destiny 2 is on season 20-something, and it's still going. Minecraft Legends, on the other hand, seems to have tapped out at around 3 seasons. Sometimes games are killed so the next game can have more content. For example, EA's 2017 Star Wars Battlefront 2. It had a god-awful launch. It locked characters and RNG upgrade system, and it felt really bare bones for what it meant to be a Star Wars game with all 3 eras. Despite this, the devs rallied and turned the game around. They pushed out incredible post-launch updates with new modes, new heroes and villains, new maps, cosmetics obtainable through in-game currency, and a completely revamped and fair progression system. All of that was not enough to save the game though, and it was cast into the fire by EA so they could support the next title, Battlefield. Battlefield 5. Well, no, not Battlefield 5. Actually, that game actually had a really similar story to Battlefront 2. The game launched bare bones, and it only had 2 armies for a World War II game. And the devs, they would make their own battle royale that flopped tremendously. Rest in peace, Firestorm. And then they rallied, and they created the Pacific update, and it felt like that game was finally getting turned around. Of course, then it was thrown into the firestorm and died when EA saw that Battlefield 5 was dead in the water, and they didn't want to use any more money on it. So they took those devs out too, and say, hey, go talk to the Battlefront 2 guys, make a really good Battlefield game. And so those devs got together to create the ultimate Battlefield experience. The name? Battlefield 2042. Wait, no, that game launched bare bones too. It had 7 maps in the main game and 20 weapons in the base game. Sure, it had a portal mode, but that's not what anyone plays. There's no campaign, a new mode called Hazard Zone that was just knockoff Tarkov that everyone knew was going to die the same way that Firestorm did. The game had such a hype first trailer, and it was really honestly just downhill from there. If it weren't for the fact that they sold a season pass for the game, I really don't think it would have gotten as many seasons as it did. I love Battlefield, and I love 2042 now, but Battlefield 4 had 5 expansion packs with 4 maps apiece. That's 20 maps. 2042 has 5 DLC maps. While a live service model means a game can thrive for years and years, it also means that ones that aren't are just killed really soon and thrown towards the next live service project. And so while games like Battlefront 2 and Battlefield 5 are cancelled after being turned around, games like Halo Infinite and Battlefield 2042 are still supported after being turned around. The issue with this, and a good amount of live service games, is they lose their biggest audience they're ever going to have, which is on launch day, because these games keep getting put out with a launch now, fix later mentality. Today, those who remain in these half-finished at launch franchise entries are generally not new players, but legacy players who love the series. And while each season of content would impress a casual audience, the feeling of this should have been here from the start plays in the backs of the minds of all of the legacy players. And I know the numbers don't mean everything, but look at the Steam player count for Battlefield and Halo, and it's obvious that so many people wanted this game to be good. They tried it out. They weren't impressed, and then they left. Sure, some of them may have not liked the gameplay, and that's why they left, but for some it was missing features like game modes or maps. And while it's possible for these games to bring in new players with all the new content, it's difficult to bring back those who tried the game and left it. For most of them, the game burned them, failing to meet these expectations that the rest of the series previous had set. And they may feel like the game doesn't deserve a second chance for them. If these games came out in the state they're currently in, they would no doubt be significantly more popular than they are now. But because they were incomplete, gamers look elsewhere for content. In the live service era, there's tons of games that have been supported for years on end that are more intriguing than a half-finished game that might get better, or might have its support quietly ended. Not to mention, a lot of those options don't even cost a dime. While not all live service games are free to play, most free to play games are live service. So how does a game get support if you can play the game completely free? Well, a few games lock content behind paywalls. It's not that different from DLCs in the past. If you want to play the new stuff, you gotta pay for it. Things like Overwatch 2 story missions or Destiny 2's expansions fall in line with this classic DLC purchase model. Most games, though, have gotten a little bit craftier to make you spend your money. The hero genre is incredibly popular right now. Pick a character with specific abilities and change the outcome of a match. While it may seem obvious to just make these characters a premium, that isn't exactly the route that these games go for. Sure, you can outright buy characters in Apex, or Overwatch 2, Rainbow Six Siege, or Valorant. You can also unlock them through normal gameplay by earning in-game currency. That means that all players are able to unlock all characters without the need for purchasing anything else in-game. The issue is that this system is meant to take advantage of you. You don't unlock this free currency all that quick. It can take hours just to get enough currency for a single character. The system is designed intentionally to do one of two things. It'll either have you playing the game a ton to unlock this character, keeping the game populated, or you'll want to skip the grind and just buy the character with real currency instead, because that's less frustrating than having to grind the game. This is the reality for live service games. Personally, I can't make myself put a lot of money into a free game. A free game is a good deal, and as soon as I'm putting money into it, it's not a good deal. Shout out to the whales who are buying the cosmetics and paying for this game for me. I thank you all very much. I mean, I'll occasionally buy battle passes, but only if I know I'm gonna complete it or I've already completed the free track. Apex, Fortnite, and Halo have been games where I've bought the battle passes, but never a single shop item. Of course, there are battle passes of games that I play that I won't buy no matter what. And for example, Overwatch 2, because it doesn't give you enough premium currency for the next pass, which is an industry standard at this point. In fact, it doesn't give you any premium currency. If the game's been out for a whole year, they're looking to do 6 seasons a year at $10 a pass. That's $60 a year. I'm not paying for a new game every year on a game that's supposed to be free. Of course, I'm not telling you what to do with your money. You do what you want. Do what makes you happy. And this stuff's not exclusive to free games either. Dead by Daylight and Rainbow Six Siege, they cost like $15 on like a sale weekend. But once you go and open the game, you're greeted to a large character roster that you don't have access to, paying more on top of the base game, either through the Ultimate Edition of these games, or just using currency to be on par with everybody else who's been playing for a long time. With these live service games comes content released at a steady pace. Instead of an expansion or DLC maps from a couple months after the game launches, games launch with a season, and every 60 to 90 days, or 9 months if you're Halo Infinite, you release another season. These seasons are designed to keep players engaged throughout the whole 2 or 3 months, while also giving players who may have left the game some incentive to come back and play it. Alright, I'm going to use the word content a lot real quick. These seasons are comprised of content. The new stuff added into the game is considered content by the developers. I have a different definition to content, though. Content is stuff that I can do or interact with in the game. What does that exclude? Cosmetics. Every season, these games try to push the battle pass and store cosmetics as something notable for the season. As someone who doesn't buy anything from the store and also doesn't grind the battle pass and just buys it when I'm done with it, these cosmetics aren't content. They look cool, but they're not $20 real cool. Here's what Call of Duty thinks is noteworthy to advertise for their current season. Here's how much of it is playable in-game content, and here's all the store cosmetics. In reality, there's less content here than it looks because Call of Duty has the issue of supporting 2 games and pretending like it's one, with its premium title and Warzone. A quarter of that poster is totally irrelevant to some players. While I bet that there are people who play both Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2, there also has to be a large population of players who only play Warzone or only play MW2, and that stuff isn't relevant to them. And I'm not saying that these cosmetics shouldn't be on their poster or anything, because they need to be able to advertise these products to get people to buy things to keep supporting this game. But a season having very little real content and the poster padded with cosmetics is really just embarrassing. Eventually, though, a successful live service game will have been supported for a few years and many seasons. With all that time, it's a plethora of content for players to sink their teeth into. It's the most complete a game can feel. But that also creates this first world problem scenario for video games. Eventually, after a game has been supported for that long, it becomes very difficult or expensive to get into the game. Earlier, I mentioned games like Siege, Apex, and Overwatch. Every season that passes is another character that takes a long time to unlock. Opening a fresh account is hard and disappointing. You'll learn that as a game gets further into its lifespan, the DLC characters are way more interesting and unique than their base game counterparts. Characters and maps aren't the only place where live service games get difficult to get into, though. Many live service games also try to interweave a narrative into the multiplayer aspect of their game via cutscenes during the beginning of the season or during events. I know Siege and Halo Infinite are doing this to some degree. I don't think either game has those cutscenes archived, though, so you really can't even get into a story unless you look it up or have been there from the start. Worse than just narrative, just look at Destiny 2. The game is on season 22, which sounds insane. I know personally that I wouldn't start a TV show at season 22. Why would I start a game at that? On top of that, there are expansions to Destiny 2 that are no longer playable in any capacity. I know that there are people who love this game, and I bet it's fun to play, but to me, narrative is an important part of a PvE game, and knowing that I'm missing a part of a complete story drives me away from even starting it. On top of that, it's $100 to get all the actual content in the game right now, and there's no signs of slowing down the expansion packs. And there's nothing wrong with charging for good content, but it's an extremely hard sell in a world where there's tons of fantastic free games and complete experiences out there. And that's just some of what it means to be a live service game in 2023. It's not objectively good, it's not objectively bad, it just is. For fans of those games, it's wonderful, unless it launched really weak and then there's some writing on the wall. Not every game needs to be a live service. Between larger profile titles like Baldur's Gate 3, most Sony single-player third-person narrative games, and literally every great indie title you've ever played, there are some complete and full experiences on launch that the price of admission is worth every cent and then some. For gaming as a whole, the live service has created some of the biggest successes, while also showing us that big-name AAA companies don't always know what the consumer wants, but how to best make money. I don't think that this model is going away anytime soon. Just by the options it has given free-to-play players, I would say that this live model service is worth it. Looking back to 2014 when I got my Xbox One, and what options were back then for free games, it's nothing compared to the complete and full experiences that there are today. It'll be interesting to see if more games go free to play in order to compete with these 5+ year supported experiences, or will games just have to start launching in better states, or it's going to be killed out the gate. I don't know, but it's been fun to watch this play out over the years. To all the whales who support my free to play experiences, again, thank you.